Welcome to Blue Tinted Glasses, the home of Leicester City talk on YouTube. Fan debates, live watch-alongs, post-match reactions, and all the Foxes banter you could ask for. Subscribe now and see the game through Blue Tinted Glasses.
Just into race clear. He's got Jamie Vardy with him. Jamie Vardy sets off. Jamie Vardy! Pull back here for Darwin. Oh, he scored! An absolute belter! That is trademark Abdul Fatahwood.
This one into the box. Nugent over the top. Oh, what a goal! David Nugent's just scored a beauty. He's made Forest look like fools.
Premier League champions 2016. The amazing Leicester City.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Blue Tinted Glasses. Something slightly different today. We have more top interviews reaction. Obviously, as you can see, I'm joined by Jake from Big Strong Leicester Boys. We'll be joined by Owynn in just a second as well. Jake, before we get into it, mate, how's things with you?
How are things? They're good. It's been a busy week, lots of radio and media, and like I'm sure you guys have as well been very, very busy talking about not just a managerial sacking, but let's say a bit of a car crash interview from our esteemed owner. So yeah, it's been an interesting week to say the least. Yeah,
it's interesting. It's, you know, we always say it's never a dull moment supporting Leicester, and you know, there's often like these kind of crazy weeks, but that weekend just gone, I mean, that was as crazy as it gets, I think, with everything that unfolded and the order that it all unfolded as well. Before we get Owynn on, obviously before he joins, I wanted to ask you, mate. I mean, we're going to talk about some of the specific answers shortly, but just now looking back, the dust has settled a couple of days on. What is your reaction? What is your raw reaction to all of the interviews, not just Owynn's, but some of the written ones as well?
It basically confirmed everything. I already thought that this was a guy who doesn't have the answers. I don't think it has ever really had them. He's in over his head, not just with the football club, but in business at King Power and just in life. And it just confirmed everything that I already thought, that his ability to turn this around just is not there. And it's now about at what point he realizes the situation in terms of where we're all at, and at what point he decides to sell. I mean, how much further do we have to fall? How much more money does he have to lose before he realizes that he's not the guy to be able to stop this rot? That's how I feel. And I feel that that's probably now where I'm not going to say majority, but a huge amount of Leicester fans are all at.
It's a weird one, isn't it? I mean, you know, we just spoke about how the interview took place just hours before the sacking of the manager, and I don't know about you, mate, but it just makes us look incredibly amateurish. You know how it all happened, and you know, we obviously had snippets before Marty was sacked from Owynn and a couple of the journalists that, you know, that meeting was going to take place. He was going to be speaking with the manager. And it got even worse, didn't it, Jake, when we actually heard the audio of him saying he needs time? I mean, what you know, if you had to guess, Jake, what do you think happened there? Do you think he was just lying to the media, or do you think he just didn't know at that current moment whether he was going to sack him?
I mean, the reality is we're never going to know, without being overly harsh, but you never try reason or try understand the minds of someone who I think the phrase is you never try to understand the mind of an idiot. And that's not me calling, you know, Top an idiot. But the point is that I think we can really analyse and work out how and why it all happened in that audio. But I don't think you're ever really going to truly understand the answer. My opinion is that he did know that Marty was going to lose his job. So it was absolutely amateur. like you say, that he went ahead and did that interview as opposed to just rearranging them for the next day and doing things in the correct order. Because also, and I actually messaged Owynn before the interview was released when the quote was put on social media that that Top admitted that he was basically looking into the future of the manager, and the talks are going to happen. Well, that's not a vote of confidence, is it? Usually when you talk about the dreaded vote of confidence for managers, the owner comes out, says something really positive, and backs him, and then basically a couple of days later they usually sack him, don't they? But to come out and basically say, yeah, we're looking into it, I might sack him, is just absolutely astonishing. In the fact that, imagine if he didn't then sack him, Marty's just been completely undermined. So he only had one option at that point when he said that publicly, but to sack him. But then obviously they then go on and do this entire interview with Owynn and every other journalist where they're asking about the future of the manager, which all just essentially just becomes redundant in terms of the answers that he gives, but also secondly, just makes him look completely ridiculous that he's then putting both of these people through that process of asking pointless questions. So yeah, I think everyone feels the same, that was a ridiculous scenario for everyone.
Yeah. Well, here's let's get him in. Here's Owynn. Evening, Owynn, mate. How's things with you?
Yeah, good evening, guys. All good, thank you. A little
Good.
tired, I have to be said. I'm glad for no more Leicester City drama today.
Yeah, I was going to say, mate, I was speaking to Rob Tanner earlier as well, and the first thing I said is busy week, so I'm guessing it's the same for you, mate.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think anyone, I think, Jake, and you were just alluding to it there, I don't think anyone kind of expects this thing to happen, especially in the way that it does happen. So, yeah, it made Saturday feel quite draining because of the performance, and then Sunday was a very long day indeed.
Well, the first thing I want to ask you, Owynn, obviously, us three and everybody watching as well knows kind of how frustrated Leicester fans have been over the years with the lack of communication. So before we get into some specifics, Owynn, I just wanted to ask you, obviously you were the man there asking him the questions, did you feel that Top understood kind of the scale of the anger and frustration from the fans?
It's a difficult one to answer because I guess the only person who really knows just how, from his perspective, would be him. I got the sense that he knew that the communication had not been good enough. He referenced it multiple times throughout the interview and talked about how that actually it hasn't been good enough for the last 7 or 8 years. And maybe, towards the beginning of those 7 or 8 years, he thought they were doing enough. But as the growing concerns continued to become even bigger and bigger as time went on, it became pretty clear to him that actually that wasn't the case. Now, why that didn't, as time went on, raise more alarm bells as to, actually doing the communication and actually being pretty clear and transparent with supporters, but also media as well, I don't know. Perhaps there was an expectation, or perhaps there was a hope that they would be able to get themselves back into a good run of form, back into the Premier League, back into the success that they enjoyed before, and actually that would cool off the expectation of communication because things are going well, and you leave the club to it, as many fans did during that time between essentially promotion back to the Premier League all the way through to the FA Cup win. Yeah. Frustrations were growing, but the success on the pitch was there for everyone to see, really. So I got the sense that there was an understanding of why the communication and how that had become a real part of the anger which was being felt by the fans. And actually, with that in mind, I like I say, only he will know whether he fully understands the supporters' frustration and anger.
What about you, Jake? Because I've, a few of the comments I've seen today, reading up some fan opinions on this, is some people have said that they think Top maybe feels a little bit hard done to, and Top doesn't understand why fans are angry and frustrated. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think there might be a little bit of that?
Yeah, I think this wasn't necessarily my takeaway, but I did then see lots of other fans saying it did feel a little bit kind of a poor me situation where, he spoke about how COVID had essentially, affected the football club and then the relationship between the fan and the club. And we all know that, King Power as a business itself obviously did suffer hugely through COVID, and that did have a knock-on effect to the football club, but not so much to the point that it would have affected his ability to either communicate and just basically it's very, very difficult to have too much sympathy because every other club has essentially gone through the same thing to various extents, and it did just seem to feel that it was we don't know why it's gone wrong. COVID was something that contributed to, and it's like, well, these aren't really kind of tangible things that fans are gonna accept. And obviously when it was pushed on further things about kind of the relegation back in 22-23, he just didn't really seem to kind of have strong answers. And this thing about communication, it's interesting, isn't it? Because communication can be done in many ways. It doesn't have to be sit down interviews with people. You can communicate just essentially by almost being there. If Top had kind of been more visible throughout all this period, being at events, being at the games, and the running of the club was done properly, then there's not need to do all these things, because clearly, vocal communication and interviews isn't a strong point, and there's not necessarily a necessity for him to be doing that all the time. It's the fact that he has been so distant in every manner, and every aspect of the club does feel neglected, that when you are then seeing the results on the pitch, then the proof's in the pudding, isn't it? If you're not there and there aren't people doing their jobs, and there doesn't seem to be any kind of accountability for some of those people when they're not doing the jobs properly, that's when you start wanting to ask questions and get answers. But yeah, unfortunately, we've had the communication, but I don't think we've really got too many answers.
Yeah, I mean, people who watch this channel, Owynn, no, I don't usually take notes, but I did listen back to the interview today and made a few. And not long into the interview, there was a comment made by Top talking about how planning for this season began the day we were relegated from the Premier League last season. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that comment, Owynn, because I suppose fans. I mean, I'll speak for myself here. But I look at the fact that I think I heard this stat on your podcast, Jake, that we were 23rd out of 24 teams to appoint a manager this season in the Championship. That doesn't scream of a lot of planning for this season, Owynn. Obviously, there's speculation that it might have been because of PSR we had to wait to sack Rude, but it didn't feel at all like there was much planning ahead of this season. And the results are showing.
Just to jump in really quick, in case of the stats here, we were the 23rd of the 24 teams in terms of appointing manager, but we were the 3rd of the 24 to have our place confirmed in the Championship. So one of the first to have our place, but the last to sort out our manager, despite the fact we were relegated from the Premier League in May.
And actually, when you look back at how Leicester City were playing and their position in the league, and the fact that they couldn't score a goal under Ruud van Nistelrooy for so long, the expectation was, and I kind of felt a shift around the club around late January, early February, that there was perhaps an acceptance that this might be happening, and the relegation is clearly going to be a case that either they will survive by the skin of their teeth with a remarkable run of form, or they will be relegated. And I don't think many at the club could really see that remarkable run of form coming. And I think that's part of the reason why players like Jeremy Monga and Jake Evans were beginning to get their opportunities under Ruud van Nistelrooy. Now, in terms of the planning, it's all well and good to wait to sack your manager because you want the money to roll into the next PSR year. If they were already very close to the bar and they want that money in the next set of accounts, I think every Leicester fan, regardless how you feel about King Power, about John Rudkin, about Ruud van Nistelrooy, about Marty Cifuentes, I think everyone can work out and accept that's a pretty reasonable way to manage your finances, especially with the way that PSR works. But that doesn't mean from the last game of the season, maybe even before, all the way through when you're going to sack Ruud van Nistelrooy. That was pretty clear when they refused to have a conversation with him for the final 2 months of the season about, renewing his deal or committing to him to be the manager. It doesn't stop you talking to other managers in that time. It doesn't stop you putting yourself in the position to have, right, you sack Ruud a couple of days before pre-season starts so that on the first day of pre-season, the new manager walks through the door. All those things could have been carrying on still, but it felt like they waited, and we will never know whether this actually was the case, but it certainly feels like they waited until they'd sacked Ruud van Nistelrooy before they then started opening up the conversation as to who was going to be the next manager. And that feeling is backed up by the fact it was only after then did they interview candidates like Gary O'Neill and Chris Wilder before appointing Marty Cifuentes in the middle of July. And Marty obviously started already on the back foot, and I think he was pretty aware of that when he joined up with the group on the summer tour and the training camp in Austria.
Jake, I mean, it's a common theme, isn't it, with managers and Leicester? You know, it does seem we find ourselves in a similar situation now. It always seems that they don't start looking for another manager until they've actually sacked the current one. And I mean, I remember speaking to Rob Tanner about this a while back, and he said it's, you know, the Thai culture, that they're respectful and they don't want to disrespect the current manager by talking to a new one. But the way I look at that, Jake, is that's to the detriment of the club. Like, you know, we think back to the Brendan Rodgers sacking. You know, all of us fans knew he had to go earlier, but he didn't, and he stayed for way too long. But it wasn't until they sacked him when they started to look for a new one and started to speak to new managers. So, you know, we worry now, Jake, don't we, that we're in the same boat now. We're not going to hear anything for quite some time about the next manager.
Yeah, I mean, last time I checked, John Rudkin wasn't from Thailand, so I don't know why. You know, if it's his responsibility to be searching for new managers, he can't have a potential list of candidates. Because I can guarantee you, if you went to speak to Brighton right now and said if Fabian Hertzler was to go tomorrow, he'd have a list of 4 or 5 potential managers, and same with pretty much. I know, you know, Brighton is the club that all people kind of tend to go to in terms of, you know, recruitment, etc., and Brentford. But those things happen at most football clubs. And it absolutely does not happen at this football club in the slightest. You know, the delay in finding a manager. I say finding a manager because we ended up with Dean Smith, but that delay when we had Mike Stowell for those 2 home games, which we lost both of them after the sacking of Brendan Rodgers, ultimately, you know, you can say was the reason we got relegated. You know, the landing on Steve Cooper off the back of Enzo, and then realising 2-3 months that he wasn't the right guy is, again, the reason we got relegated. And I'd love to, I mean, unfortunately, I don't think we'll ever do, but I would love to hear from both Ruud van Nistelrooy and Marty Cifuentes at some point and really kind of hear about their experiences, because it's interesting. Obviously, they haven't got a wealth of experience in terms of working at other clubs, but in terms of, you know, what was Ruud told when he came in? And same with Marty, because as I said, you know, it's the managers that have repeatedly taken you know, the brunt for this and ultimately paid the price with their jobs. And look, you know, there's worse jobs to have, isn't there, where you come in, work for 6 months and get a payoff and walk in off into the sunset. But I'm sure they would have much preferred, you know, to be told things and you know, the director of football of the club to kind of action on them and follow through with them, and, you know, to get basically every other thing that most managers would want. And say it'd just be so interesting to hear their side of the story, because obviously from the director of football we hear nothing, and then the managers don't ever get the opportunity to speak. So us as fans, we sit here and we feel like we know the answers and we feel like it's pretty clear what's happened, but we're kind of then guessing. And then obviously we had the situation where, you know, Owynn directly asks, as many others did, about, you know, why has John Rudkin never kind of felt the repercussions, or why has he been so protected throughout these years? And, you know, it's quite clear, isn't it, that Top isn't going to listen and accept any criticisms towards John. So yeah, I would just love to hear from these managers one day.
I mean, Owynn, you know, Jake's obviously mentioned John Rudkin. I think that was the one question that majority of Leicester fans were looking forward to hearing. And the answer, I mean, it disappointed, I'm sure, a lot of people. I wanted to ask you, Owynn, I mean, I get the impression, I'm sure others get the impression that Top, you know, that there is no imminent sacking of John Rudkin. That is not on the horizon at all. And, you know, one thing in particular, this wasn't actually from your interview, I don't think. I think it was from one of the other ones, Owynn, but Top said about, you know, no one talks about the successes under John Rudkin. And I felt like saying, Well, they did for years, right? They gave credit to this ownership, to the staff at the club for many years. They were spoken about as the best owners in England, and the best run club in England. So I don't buy the whole, trying to kind of play it off as, well, you didn't give him credit then, but you're giving him hate now. I didn't really understand that.
Yeah, he did mention that kind of thing to me as well. And actually, I found it quite interesting talking actually that segment around not just John really, but actually what the director of football does, and also what the technical director, which is probably the appointment that most people will be focusing on when those three arrive through the door. But in terms of your first question, no, I don't think that John Rudkin is in a position where he's going to lose his job. No, of course not. I think you can tell that by the way that Kuntop, when I asked him about, whether, as a broad point, whether he feels director of football and those roles across the club and other clubs should be kind of held accountable to the same way that a manager does. And he referenced the point you just made there, Locks, that actually, he said if when Leicester City won the Premier League title, was John involved? Yes. When they won the FA Cup, was he involved? Yes. When they were in the semi-final of a European competition, was he involved? Yes. And actually, the point around that Leicester City got the praise for that wasn't John Rudkin getting the praise. It was the ownership and the board and well-run club, etc. And on Top's point, and I'm not saying I agree with this, but Top's point was, when it goes the other way, if everyone's a success when the club's doing well, how can one person be the failure when they don't do well? Which is an interesting, particularly when you consider the context and the criticism around John Rudkin. I found that an interesting thing to say. But then he went on to kind of, and that's why I asked the question as well around, what does the director of football at this football club actually do? Because the lack of communication has led us down a road where, Locks, you've done it, Jake, you've done it, I've done it. Everyone in association with Leicester City has tried to work out who is responsible on the board for what. Who is responsible for the hiring and sacking of a manager? Does that fall to John or does that fall to Top? Who brings in the players? Does Martin Glover, the head of recruitment, deliver the players? Does the manager have a say? Does John make the decision? Does Kuntop override them all? And he talked about they have a panel when it comes to players of Top, John Rudkin, the head of recruitment, and the manager. And only if there is a unanimous yes on said player, that they will move forward with the target. And actually, because of that, it means the targets get thinned down quite a bit, and that kind of halts their work a little. Whether that should go to more of a democratic, 3 out of 4 say yes, then you should probably go ahead with the deal. But you have to remember that under Steve Cooper, it would have been Steve Cooper, Martin Glover, John Rudkin, and Kuntop that decided to pay out incredible amounts of money for some of the players to replace, like Kiernan Dewsbury Hall, with Oliver Skipp. Now, Oliver Skipp has had a pretty good season in the Championship, all things considered, but was he worth £25 million when Leicester just got promoted back to the Premier League? Arguably not. Was Jordan Ayew, Patson Daka, Oliver Skipp, Yannick Vestergaard, all these other players, Harry Winks, should they have all been on 70, 80, 90,000 pounds a week? Probably not. Now, Kuntop put that down to ambition, and when you are ambitious, it costs more money. But I think there has to be, and this is part of what the technical director is clearly coming in to do, to have a little bit more of a say on the day-to-day running of this is how we do things, and an extra voice to support that football department at the club.
Jake, I mean, on that point that Owyn's just made, and obviously what Top,
he loves the phrase football department. I can already tell.
Jake, I was going to ask you about the panel, right? Owynn mentioned there that Top spoke about the panel. What worries you more? Does it worry you more that 4 people all agreed to pay £25 million for Skipp and give Winks 90 grand? I mean, for me, that worries me more than if it was just one man, John Rudkin.
I mean, all of it's laughable, isn't it? If you're going to describe signing Jordan Ayew, Oliver Skipp, and Bobby Decote-Overeed as a club showing ambition, then I mean, honestly, was that a list of players that they put forward with that brains trust there? They were the most ambitious ones on those lists. If that's the case, then then it's really scary. And look, he obviously didn't fully divulge who was on the panel, but you would assume it's top Martin Glover, John Rudkin, and whoever the manager is.
No, he did. He said that they were the four. Yeah.
Okay. So obviously he said that's the group. But again, what it appears is that nothing happens unless Kuntop is there and sat around a table and has this conversation with these guys. And I can only assume that they've probably not even spoken about January targets, or he hasn't, until he's here this week. They're probably doing that today. And then John will go away and see what he can kind of rustle up between now and the deadline day, which I just find bizarre in the fact that Kuntop clearly does not know much about football. And that's fine, right? That's not necessarily a problem. As long as you have the foundations and the people in place who do. He does not need to be kind of signing off things and being involved in these decisions, because he's not the football expert. Your director of football, your head of recruitment, etc. These are all the experts. Obviously sign it off, have that conversation with them, but Kuntop does not need to be sat there. And I just find it clearly the manager was not going to get sacked until Kuntop was back in the UK, which happened almost instantly. It could have happened any time beforehand, but it wasn't going to happen unless he's here. And again, I'm now reading between the lines, the fact that we haven't signed anyone, I'm assuming they haven't sat down and spoken about it. And it's now the 28th of January. And again, when he talks about, the process of how they sign players, Kuntop, in his wildest kind of dreams, could not sit there with a straight face and say that this process has been a successful process over the last 4 years. And anyone, again, if you're a smart, right-thinking, clever person, would say, okay, maybe we need to look at this process because it's not working. And that's the thing, how they're recruiting managers, how they're signing players, whatever that process is, it's not working. But that post Marty, they're going to go straight back to that process, and this is how we're going to talk about our January transfer windows, and this is how we're going to sign our new manager. And the names we've heard linked, in terms of players coming in, is frighteningly underwhelming, and same with the managers as well. I don't know how many more times they have to fail at transfer windows and recruit bad managers until he recognizes that process that they're going through is not fit for purpose. And it's not what other forward-thinking and progressive football clubs are doing. There's not a chance they're doing it the same way.
And Locks, there's less than a week to go now until the end of the transfer window. And very similar to the point I made earlier around managers and Ruud van Nistelrooy, it's okay if you're going to sack him. And he probably knew that as well. I mean, he looked like a man on the final day of the season away at Bournemouth that was kind of like, I wish you would just tell me.
He must have been surprised, Owynn. He must have been surprised he was still in a job.
The thing is, right, is that Ruud van Nistelrooy always came across to me personally, and a lot of this you don't often see, but really nice guy. Wanted to come in. Clearly, no one comes to a football club, whether you're going to play, whether you're going to manage, whether you're going to be a steward, whether you're going to serve the pints behind the bar. No one comes to work to do a bad job, especially when you're in those high pressure, very public environments. But I got the impression with Ruud van Nistelrooy that he wanted to stay, that he wanted the challenge of taking Leicester City, and he probably did for his own career as well, because actually being at Manchester United, having that success, and then getting relegated with Leicester City, he probably wanted the opportunity to get them back into the Premier League. And just like that situation went on for far too long, that doesn't mean that the football club aren't able to have discussions around the January transfer window before the January transfer window. And they can have these targets, they can be opening these channels behind whilst the window is closed in order to make these deals happen. There's a reason why some deals go through on January the 1st, and that's because the deals are already done and ready to go. The issue that I have witnessed over the last probably 4 weeks or so, let's say at a very minimum, maybe longer, is the difference of Marty Cifuentes in his press conferences. And there was me and Jake spoke about this earlier in the week as well, that there was a very different narrative in Marty Cifuentes' last pre-match press conference ahead of the game against Oxford than there had been since mid-December, when he started getting asked about the standard questions. Is the planning happening? Is there money to spend? Are you looking to improve? Where are you looking to improve? And Martí Cifuentes had a relatively positive outlook. Yes, obviously January is a difficult window to move in. Yes, we're looking to try and bring in reinforcements. I think it's clear to anyone that watches Leicester City that they need a striker. And then in the leading up to the game against Oxford, excuse me, there was a clear change in that narrative, where he then talked about how Leicester City were in a completely different reality financially to when they were last in the Championship. And it felt, I sat there and I spoke to other journalists afterwards in the room as well, and I sort of felt, I don't think they're going to sign anyone. Now, that might change. Clearly, they've had the targets of Ibrahim Diabate, who's moved on. He's already found a new team. Whether they have other targets that they're looking to move in this window, what Kuntop said to me directly goes against the reporting elsewhere, which is that he said, I asked him, do you have money to spend? He said, yes, there is money to spend if the deal is right and there's a right solution, he called it, to bring a player to the club. Yet there's reports out there from very well-respected journalists talking about how Leicester can only do loans. So which one is it? Are Leicester City able to move in this transfer market? And should they move in this transfer market now they don't have a manager as things stand? Andy King, the interim boss, yes, but they're in the search for a manager. So again, Jake made this point on When You're Smiling earlier in the week. What manager comes to Leicester City knowing that the kind of situation around the transfers, and will they be able to bring anyone in, or is it a better club to come to in the summer? Who knows? Only the people behind the scenes at Leicester City know that the answer to those questions.
Just finally, Jake, let me get your thoughts on that, mate. I mean, yeah, I was going to bring it up. Top said the money's available if they find the right player, the right solution. I feel like we've heard that before in a window from the manager. It certainly feels like there's not going to be anyone coming in. I mean, we spent zero in the summer on transfer fees, obviously a couple of loans. What's your expectation for the rest of the last few days of the window? Because personally, I think maybe we might get lucky and get a loan player in, one or two maybe, but that's about it.
Yeah, no, I think that's the length of what anyone's expectations or ambition should be for this window, that we may get a loan player in, because even if we had money, we've never been able to recruit in January, and I think it's pretty evident that we don't have money. Maybe Top kind of has to say that to kind of save some sort of face when they go to try to sign someone, or not to make the fans worry too much. But as Owynn said, there's very, very respected sources out there which say that we've probably only got the ability to make loan moves, which is pretty evident because that's what we did in the summer. And again, that's not like us to not have signed anyone. So clearly there was an issue there, and that was a restriction that we had. And I actually went to try and tweet about it earlier on today, but I was talking about the January failings over the past, but obviously I ran out of characters because there's just been so many. But we're in a situation, again, we went into this month of January, and I think we'd all sit here and say, what do you need more than anything else? You'd say a striker. We had 4 options at the start of January of people who could play up front for Leicester. It's now the 28th, and we currently have 2. So we're starting and ending the month, the thing that we needed more than anything else, with half of what we started. How can that be the case when we're desperately short of goals? We're now probably going to end the month with less than what we started. And it was the exact same. Well, not so obviously last January, we had the one with, Rude constantly talking about, ability to sign players. There was still a chance we could stay up, and we ended up signing a third choice right back, which, in 2 to 3 years time, I don't think anybody's going to have a clue who on earth that was. And it's going to be a player on our Who Are You quiz on the Big Strong Leicester boys. The year before that was obviously the year we got promoted from the Championship. What did we need more than anything else that year? Attacking midfielders. We sent then Cassidy back. And what did we get by the end of January? We had less than what we started. The previous year, when we got relegated from the Premier League, what did we need? We needed wingers. We had hardly any. And what did we have by the end of January? Less wingers than what we started. We let Perez and we let Albrighton go. And it's just failure after failure when it comes to January, because they just can't move quick enough. And the director of football is clearly not capable to do it. Whether he's waiting for sign-offs from the owner, I do also think, clearly Rudkin is a big problem here, but I also think you should not ignore Top in terms of his inability just to make decisions, be there and sign off stuff, which allows people to do their jobs properly. But yeah, I think it's going to be another January where we end the month weaker than what we started it. And that's it. That's kind of what we should be coming to expect with January. But kind of one final point, sorry, because I know I'm talking a lot, is that if we were to spend money, I'd be really angry if we did. We cannot sit here and fail PSR 4 years in a row, facing, another points deduction. We're sat here with not a single, bit of money to. What are we doing going into spending money? Clearly, they need to keep cutting, the resources at the club and selling players. We need to stop spending money, or otherwise we're never going to get out of this mess. So if your answer is to go spend money, no doubt on a player that's not very good, because that's the track record, then stop spending money. And I don't think we should spend any money. If you can get a couple of loans in, as a low risk, then great. But we shouldn't be spending money, full stop. If the finances are that bad, which everyone tells you that is, other than the owner, then we should not be spending money on anyone. And probably not sacking managers. But, that one's too late now, isn't it? That's gone.
Just finally, Locks. I think that the stat that brings, obviously, Jake's point there about there being 4 strikers at the club now. There's only 2. The 2 that remain have played obviously the most games out of those 4 so far this season. 55 appearances between them so far in this campaign in all competitions. They've scored 7 goals and have assisted 5 more. Now, if you want to be a team that gets promoted back to the Premier League, as Leicester City should be in this division, they shouldn't, with everything that's gone on over the last 10 years, they shouldn't be in the Championship with the successes and the players that they've had. But here they are, and they need a striker that's going to score more than, what's Jordan Ayew? Jordan Ayew is the top scoring striker, if you like, 5 goals from 29 games in all competitions so far this season. It's nowhere near the level you would expect. And when you consistently see the factual evidence of teams that get promoted from the Championship, they have strikers who score 15, 20 plus goals a season. And if their top scorer is 15, they've got wingers, attacking midfielders, another striker that's chipped in with another 20 goals. And the defenders chip in as well. Leicester do not have enough goals in this team. And it becomes the big question, Jake, that you just talked about there. Do Leicester spend the money, go and get a striker who can score the number of goals that they need to and get themselves back in and around, hopefully, the playoffs come the end of the season, and take that risk on that striker in the hope that it would do that? Or do they play safe with PSR and look to rebuild in the summer and accept another season in the Championship, should the points deduction not throw them right into a relegation battle, which it looks like it will, if indeed it comes? That's probably opened up a whole new can of worms for you to answer, Locks, right at the end of your show. I apologise.
Cheers, mate. No, it's all good, mate. It's all good. Yeah, we've got another couple people on, so I'll hand that to them. But thank you to you both. It's very much appreciated. I'll just ask you both this, but Owynn, what's coming up, mate, on When You're Smiling? Days, times, what's coming up?
Yeah, a couple of episodes coming up for you over the next couple of days. Tomorrow night, former Foxes defender Matt Heath joining us. We'll look at the ever-evolving situation around Leicester City's managerial search for a 4th permanent manager in the last 18 months, where that is at as things stand, and the kind of manager that they need to get through the door. We'll also look ahead to the game at the weekend against Charlton, and we'll hear from Union FS as well, who are going to be talking through their annual food bank drive, which is coming up for the game this weekend. And then on Friday, you'll have the pre-Charlton podcast as well. Andy King, as things stand, looks like he's going to be taking that game and the press conference, which we think will be on Friday afternoon. So you'll be able to find all the key headlines from Andy King there about where the club are at the minute, how he's feeling, how the players are feeling, and whether there will be any new signings before the transfer window closes next Monday night.
Perfect. And Jake, big strong Leicester boys, mate. When's the next pod on the way?
Yeah, do you know what? You're quite lucky. We're going to record tomorrow, and usually we're pretty slack and inconsistent to say the least. But obviously Rick wasn't very well at the weekend, so he didn't get his say following the Cifuentes sacking. So he's back feeling better. He reckons he's got the energy for a 4-hour pod tomorrow, and we've got a couple of guests lined up. So yeah, we'll do that Thursday evening. So people, if you get your notifications on, you can listen to that Friday, hopefully.
Awesome. Thank you, Owynn. Thank you, Jake. Much appreciated. I'll speak to you both soon. Cheers. All the best.
Cheers,
Thank you.
Man. Thanks.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thank you to Jake. Thank you to Owynn for that. Very much appreciated giving up the time to come on and chat all about that top interview. There is more to come. We've got Liam joining us in just a second. I'm going to go through some comments because I'm aware there's been hundreds of comments over the last 40 minutes. So I'm just going to find a few out of the blue and pick some up. So Chris says, even our loans aren't low risk. Odson Edouard, 10 million, no games. Next season, Wolves, Burnley, and most probably West Ham join the party. No way Leicester compete. Ayew is not worthy to wear the number 9 shirt. Appreciate the info. Sorry I was late. I'll have a listen when the recording drops. I mean, you can just rewind to the start now, mate. You can just rewind now on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube. Thanks, Jake and Owynn. Great to see you both and hear your views. Yeah, awesome. And there was one other comment I wanted to bring up here, which said, all appointments since Enzo, with the exception of Cooper, were all greatly backed by the supporters and gave everyone excited. So it's hard to backpedal since they failed with results. In theory, they were good appointments. All appointments since Enzo, with the exception of Cooper. Yeah, I think we were content with Marty. I think we were content with the Marty appointment. But it just turned out to be an absolute flop. So anyway, we'll move on from Marty. We're in the Andy King era now. For now. Right. Let's get Liam in. First time on the show. Liam, what's going on, mate? How are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, mate. How are you?
All good. If I'm not mistaken, we have played FIFA together before.
We have.
But just not on a show. Obviously, I could see you in the background there, mate, listening in. So I'll put it to you straight away. Top's interview. What did you make to it? How are you feeling now, a couple days on, now that it's sank in?
Look, I think everybody's in agreement that it was a lot to take in. For a start, there was a lot that he said that a lot of us thought, really?
Yeah.
I mean, I've actually kept a few of the quotes, and I'm looking here, and it says stuff like, I don't know why we went down the first time. I'm thinking, the problem is for the last sort of few years, there's been this constant incompetence there where they don't expect these things to happen, or they don't plan for them. And this is like something he says, I've not planned for the relegation, blah, blah. But you have to have it in mind, even if it's at the back of your mind, it's got to be in mind somehow that could happen. Yeah. You can't necessarily just plan for the best. And look, I think, I know there's a lot of comments he made during the interview that were very, the one that stuck out to me was the question that Owynn asked when he says, so obviously we're probably not going to go up this season. We know we're not, but we're probably not going to go up this season. What about next? What's the plan for next season? He says, we'll be promoted next season. And he laughs at it. I'm thinking, it's not a laughing matter though, is it? Really?
And that's clearly not what Owynn meant, because Owynn was saying, what are the implications of not going up? When I hear that, I'm thinking, okay, he's talking about the finances, he's talking about what effect it will have on the squad, on the fans. But he laughed it off as we'll go up next season. Yes, some things you can excuse as a language barrier, maybe. But that, Liam, felt just a little bit like disrespectful, but also naive. It was like, you just think it's as easy as going up the next year. Do you know what I mean? It's frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you can look at it, and I appreciate that to him, it's not the same as it is to a lifelong fan like ourselves and people watching. But we've been through, and I don't want to compare it to teams that have had way worse. I mean, Sheffield Wednesday, for example, are going through hell right now. Mm-hmm. But we've been through the mill the last few years. It's not like we've been sat here all smiley about it. It's not been easy having to watch where we were to where we are. to have him sit there and laugh about it and make a joke about it, I appreciate maybe it's his nature. I'm sure he's a great man. I'm sure he's a nice man, but it just felt a bit of a kick in the teeth hearing it.
Yeah. No, I agree. We've got Steve joining us as well, mate. Were you listening to Jake and Owynn?
I listened to whilst playing FIFA, funnily enough, so all FIFA friends again. It's
funny actually. Did you ever play with Liam? Were you in the pro clubs? I think you did.
Earlier this season, then possibly.
Yeah, he was the winger, as Jack said. He was the winger.
Yes, I assisted Jack a few times.
Yeah. No, Steve, what did you make to to what Owynn had to say specifically? Obviously, because I did ask him about. Did it feel to him, being in the room with him, did it feel like he grasped the severity of the situation? What did you think? Did you think he grasps the severity of it? Do you think he grasps how angry and frustrated the fans are? Because I'm not so sure.
I don't think he understood the sort of situation until the Oxford game. When he heard the boos after 4 minutes, he probably thought, "Oh shit." Because let's be honest, we all expected him to fly into the Oxford game. We'll beat Oxford. Everyone's happy. He can do the interviews and he can fly back off to Thailand for the next couple of months and not have to worry about little old Leicester City and the fan base. But us losing to Oxford meant that he had a decision to make. And, judging by the fact, and I've been very vocal on this point, that he said to Owynn, we're planning on having a conversation about the manager, and allowed that to go out and then sacked the manager 4 hours later. Yeah, we all knew it was coming. Writing was on the wall for a lot of people. If you ask most journalists that were there, they'll say, yeah, we all got the impression that Marty was going to get sacked. So just very strange, the whole thing. But look, I think Top, unfortunately, is a naive billionaire, isn't he? He has to lower himself occasionally towards mere mortals just to understand what's going on. And look, he's the owner for now. I just think he's naive.
Liam, what about you, mate? How, because you made a comment there a second ago about how he laughed. He laughed a couple of times in it. He made a little bit of a joke in the written section to Rob Tanner. He mentioned John Rudkin, bad cop, which I chuckled at initially, but still, looking back at it, it's kind of like, well, you're making light of a serious situation and serious concerns from the fans. So yeah, what about you? Do you think maybe he's a little bit? Because I'll tell you what impression I got, Liam, and I've said this quite a few times now to people over the last few days. He seems like a very chilled guy. He seems like a guy that I would probably go for a beer with. However, he's probably not the type of character or guy who I would want running a multi-million-pound business.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's you kind of expect a bit more from him. I think, well, a hell of a lot more from him, for honest. For what his position is within the club. I'm not being funny. If I own the club, I'd probably turn up more than he's done. It's very. It feels minimal. It's felt minimal for months. After the first interview he did at the Thai airport, I think it was it in Bangkok or something?
Yeah.
He says, I want to be close with the fans and all this. And we're thinking, I know a lot of us, including myself, were thinking, yeah, all right, sure. It kind of felt a bit of a let's get you off my back for a bit type interview, as opposed to I actually mean what I'm saying kind of thing. But then to not turn up for what was it, 2 months? Was Oxford the first game he'd attended since, or there was one?
He was at one game and he was throwing out tough stuffed teddy bears.
The teddy bear one, yeah. Was that the first?
Owynn said that. Owynn did say, Owynn said to him in the interview, you spoke in November about being committed, about wanting to be closer together. How many? And he said, it made me laugh. How many games have you been to? And obviously, Top never said 2. He didn't say the number. It is 2 when you include Oxford. But he said, I watch every game, at least. I watch it. I'm just not there.
No. He said he watched most games. He didn't say he watched every games.
Yeah, most games. So it's like, I don't know, it feels like, I agree with what you mentioned there, what you said, that it was probably just pushing, I don't know, kicking the can down the road a little bit with that interview. Being closer together, being committed. It hasn't felt like that at all in the last 3 months since that interview.
It's felt worse, has it not?
Yeah,
I've felt
it
worse.
has.
Yeah. But,
and you probably feel worse because, you know, he didn't say at the time, I promise you I am going to be this and I'm going to be that. But what he said in the first interview he's done in years made some fans believe, okay, there's, you know, we're going in the right direction here. He's going to be closer, and there was none of it. There's been nothing since, Liam.
I think it's difficult, right? Because there's always a part of you that hopes. I'd like to say it's the hope that kills you, but there's always a part of you that thinks he can turn it around, right? And believe me, I don't think he can at this point. I am way beyond that, but I think we need new investment. We need a new face at the head of the club type thing. I mean, the whole thing needs restructuring, but I struggle to see how he turns it around. I mean, it's that far gone now. I mean, the decline has been monumental the last few years. It's not like one relegation and then we're back up. Like, it's been. I mean, I think I tweeted something the other day about it, but like, we're looking near League One now.
Yeah,
we're looking like League One is, it's on the cards, and I hate saying it, and I don't want to be a pessimist, but when you go and see, I mean, I went Oxford at the weekend, and it was absolutely atrocious. It's flat. It's flat. There's no atmosphere there because there's nothing on the pitch, and when we know there's nothing on the pitch and there's nothing at the top of the stands, the people that should be running what's on the pitch overall, how can we be invested in that? It's hard. And I mean, I've been going for nearly 15 years. I've been going since I was, 9, 10? And it's just, I struggle with it. I really do.
No, I get what you're saying completely. Before we end, Steve, let me ask you this, mate. Rob Dorset has stated the obvious tonight. He says Andy King expected to remain in charge of Leicester for this weekend's game against Charlton Athletic. Bosses drawing up a shortlist of candidates for the substantive role. Now, Jake was saying earlier when he was on at the start of the show, Steve, that nothing seems to happen when Top's not here. And as we know, Top yesterday flew back to Thailand. And we also spoke with Jake and Owynn about the fact that every time Leicester City sack a manager, there's never a manager lined up. They never seem to speak to managers until they've sacked the current one. I think it's going to be quite some time, Steve. I mean, me personally, on Sunday when Marty was sacked, I thought, okay, they are going to take the sweet time with this because they'll just be happy with Andy King as an interim. Do you think that's the direction they're going to go in? Do you think they're just going to take their time? Because I'm thinking, Steve, if it's going to take them 2-3 weeks, I don't know, whatever it might take, and or if they feel that they're going to have to rush into a decision, I think I'd rather them wait until the summer.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think the most important thing is getting the technical director in. If you don't bring him in, and also if you bring him in and we have a manager in place that has done well, and the club think, well, we'll give him the job, they won't be that aligned. I'd rather them bring the TD in. I'm going to call him TD because whatever, and let him have a say in who we bring in. And by all accounts, that seems very close. We don't seem that far away from actually bringing that person in. So give Andy King a month, because he might win 2 or 3 games. Then everything's happy. Then let the director pick the path forward, But look, we talked about the history with the shortlist and stuff in the exclusive Spotify podcast that's out tomorrow morning at 5 a.m.
Nice plug.
Got a plug there. I almost fucked it up at the beginning. But yeah, I hope they don't have a shortlist because I want the technical director to actually have a say in who we bring in because he's the one that's going to be working with the manager. So if Andy King gets off to a good start, keep him to the end of the season. Simple as that.
Can I just add?
I was going to say, how do you feel about that, Liam? Yeah. I mean, Andy King is taking this weekend's game. If he wins a couple, Liam, and the performances are improved, then I think a lot of fans are going to say, hold your horses, don't go put in a new man.
No. Look, we all love Andy King, right? Club
Yep.
legend. But you cannot ignore the fact he's never managed a team before.
How dare you? He took pre-season. That's managing a team.
He took pre-season, but this he
played a 3-5-2, Liam. What are you talking about? He played a 3-5-2 against Leuven.
Liam out. Liam, hashtag Liam out in the comments.
But I look at it and I think, if they're going to get the next man in, it needs to be the right man, and it needs to. And I must admit, I thought it was Marty. I thought maybe he is the guy. And I think a few people did. He said the right things. He conducted himself the right way to begin with. But I want him to get it right. I'm sick of him getting it wrong, because we've had nothing to actually go, oh, they've got that right the past few years. We want something that you can go, okay, that's the right choice. That's the right decision.
Yeah.
We want somebody we can be with for 4 or 5 years now.
So you're telling me that signing Jordan Ayew, Oliver Skipp, and Bobby De Cordova-Reid wasn't right? Come on, Liam. Come on now.
Look, I don't think there's any denying that we know why Cooper brought them in, right? For his experience thing that he was raving about. But I just think, that it's, I don't know. The next manager needs to be the manager.
I know exactly what you're saying, because for a long time, Liam, and still now, I was, since like October, people say, get rid of Marty, bring in Andy King. And I was dead against it for the reasons that you already mentioned, right? He's never managed a team, and it also gives me like Ryan Mason vibes at Spurs, if you remember. Like, they just kept going back to him.
Yeah, you gave me the Bozo alarm, Locks, when I said Andy King originally.
Yeah, and I'm still going to give it. However, I'm caveating it with, my point then was, if he wins 2, if there is a clear improvement in performances, if he starts getting them running through brick walls, you have to stick with that, in my opinion, if it starts that well. If it starts on Saturday with a win, but it's still a little bit of all of our wins this season have been a bit like that wasn't really anything to shout home about, then I'm in agreement. But you never know. Look what happened to Shaky. I know Shaky had been a very experienced assistant manager, but look what happened under Shaky when we sat Ranieri. That end to the season was very good. It was very good.
I think it's important to remember as well, right, that whilst, yes, Marty's gone, it is still the same set of drivel we've been watching for the whole season. We can't expect it to be a complete 180 on what we've been seeing. It's going to be a challenge, even against Charlton, because if the players aren't up for it, like they've not been for months now, they're going to be all over us.
So I agree and I disagree in a sense that the issue I had with Marty is that the wingers were very sort of clipped. Their wings were clipped a little bit with the system that we were playing with the wingers. I don't think Andy King will play that system. I think we'll be getting it forward as Imran likes to shout, get it forward. I think we will be a lot quicker in the transition. And I think that if we score an early goal on Saturday, that the King Power is going to be bouncing for the first time in 18 months, 19 months. So I'm all here for it, but he needs to get off to a good start. If we get battered on Saturday, he won't be the next manager for sure.
I was going to say, if under Andy King, we go out there under Andy King and we lose or the performance is poor, then I said this the other day, but the first 10 minutes of that game on Saturday for me is going to kind of tell me if we're going to go up, whether we're going to go down or not. Because if we go out, we've just sacked the manager, right? We've just sacked the manager. You normally get a bounce. You normally get a few of the players. I mean, there'll be some players there who did like Marty, of course. There'll be some that didn't like him. If the performance is the same, if heads start to drop, if you concede in the first 10 minutes and we lose, I'm all aboard the I think we're going down train. But we could be wrong. Crazier things have happened in football. This wasn't an insult, by the way. Someone's having to go at Jolly. Jolly isn't insulting Liam. He's making the point that he's too rational. He's too wise to be on BTG. That's what he's saying. Because normally they're just all reactionary freaks, basically.
Yeah, they've not watched the stream before with me or Luke on at all. We're very reactionary.
Yeah.
If you see me after a game, I'm a different person. So.
I'll see you Saturday afternoon. 3 or 4 days
to...
Also, Mike, it's not doom and gloom. We're all positive for Saturday.
Yeah. We're gonna win 6-0, mate. We're gonna win 6-0. Okay, we're gonna end it there. Just a reminder to people, if you haven't seen on Twitter and the show last night, we have I get so many messages from people saying, "Oh, it's so annoying that you're not on Spotify because I can't listen to YouTube." First of all, you can listen on YouTube if you're in the gym. If you get YouTube Premium, you scrubs, right? First of all. But if you don't want to pay for YouTube Premium, then yes, it is awkward.
Hang on a second. Did you pay for YouTube Premium there, Lux? Are you a scrub as well?
I actually bought it the other day.
No.
But if you do prefer to listen to a podcast while you're commuting, or if you're in a gym, or if you're at work, whatever, we are going to have a weekly, one a week podcast coming out on Spotify. The first one is out 5 a.m. tomorrow morning. So if you're getting out and about, on, sorry, I don't know, I've just lost my train of thought. If you're out and about in the morning, tomorrow morning, then you can just go over to Spotify, blue ticket glasses, and you can, and you can listen in. So get on X, big news, huge news. What's happened on X? Am I missing something?
I haven't seen anything.
Let's just see here what's going on. I don't think anything's happening.
There's just been Rob Dorsett's tweet, no?
Is that it? Anyway.
I think so. Andy King's in charge.
There you go. I heard someone is having an interview with the club old. Anyway, so we're on Spotify 5 a.m. tomorrow morning, so you can listen to the episode. And I will tell you, it is with me and Steve, of course, but Rob Tanner as well. So similarly to what we just did with Owynn, we've got a similar thing with Rob Dorset, who was, of course, a part of the written section of Top's interviews. So that's out, as I said again, tomorrow at 5 a.m. Thank you to Owynn for coming on. Thank you to Jake as well for coming on from Big Strong Leicester Boys. As they both said, they've both got podcasts coming up over the next couple of days. And that's pretty much it. Thanks to Liam. Thank you so much for joining, mate. Much appreciated. We'll see you again very soon. And thank you for Steve. Why are people saying there's news on X? What's the news?
I haven't seen any news. I think it's a troll. It must be.
Yeah. Anyway, cheers all. Thank you so much. And we will see you tomorrow on Spotify tomorrow morning. Cheers all. Bye-bye. No more 200 grand, but our new sponsors, The Beautiful Frame, have smashed it with this Jamie Vardy piece. It's unreal. They're a local Leicester business as well, which makes it even better. And not just City, they do prints for other clubs as well. So it's perfect if you are stuck for a birthday or Christmas present for one of your friends or family. Now, the best bit, they have sorted BTG viewers out with a discount. Just use BTG12 at checkout for money off. BTG12. Grab yours now at thebeautifulframe.com. The link is down below.